Welcome to the Business Owner Spotlight. My name is Tanner O'Brien. I'm a senior partner here at ActionCOACH in Central Texas, and I'm so excited to be here chatting with Guillermo Cornejo today about his business, his journey through entrepreneurship, and just kind of some general things about business, entrepreneurship, and the path for that here. So, Guillermo, thank you so much for taking the time to be here and chatting with us today. I'm going to turn it over to you. Share a little, introduce who you are, share a little bit about what you do, and kind of what's going on in your world business wise today. Take it away.
Thank you. My name is Guillermo Cornejo, and I am the founder and CEO of RiderShare. RiderShare is like an Airbnb, but for renting motorcycles. So people come to our website, they lease bikes for rent. We find vetted riders to rent them. We provide insurance to provide, we make it trustworthy. And we keep a commission from each rental as a business model. I started out 4 years ago, and yeah, it's been a crazy journey.
And that's awesome. That sounds so exciting. 4 years ago, so I'm curious. I always like to ask the question, for customer base. Like if I'm sitting here listening to this, how do I know that I am the right person to come and use your service? Like who is the best type of individual or person that you're looking to take advantage of your service?
Yeah. So the best type of person for us is someone who's a very experienced motorcycle rider and therefore at low risk of crashing the motorcycle, and who's also wealthy and can therefore spend a lot of money on rentals, usually to travel around across the United States or to test ride different motorcycles or both. And so usually that ends up being an older white male, to be perfectly honest, but also foreigners. We love foreign customers because they take longer trips and they don't crash very often and they spend a lot of money.
Oh, that's so cool. Because that was kind of my next question was, location wise, is it really hyper local at this point? Is it really moved into nationwide? If you were to rent it, how far can you take a motorcycle? Like, do you have to kind of change? And tell me a little bit about what that experience looks like.
Yeah, we have almost 4,000 motorcycles listed nationwide in every state except New York. And yeah, people go on really long trips sometimes, all the way to Canada and back. And most people do, about 50% of customers do 1-day trips, that are 100 miles and that's it. But the average is 3 days because there are some people that skew the average, by taking these amazing road trips. And they send us pictures, they have a blast. And yeah, I think that answers your question.
That's awesome. So I'm curious, and as we kind of start to shift into journey and kind of how you got into it, that sort of thing. What got you into this? Is this something that you were kind of a two-part question? I'll ask it kind of in two parts. We can break it down as needed. But the first part was this always kind of what you wanted to do? Did you want to get into this particular line of having a service for renting motorcycles? And kind of the second part of that is this is a journey of entrepreneurship and business ownership. Is that a path you always wanted to take, or how did this all come about for you?
Honestly, after college, I was, I studied political science and economics, and I wanted to make the world a better place and all that stuff. And then I learned in college that you can't do anything unless you're like a billionaire. And so I kind of gave up on that dream. And then, but then I met some people that had, with very little experience or expertise, had managed to build big companies. And I think that was super important. Once you see someone do it, it's no longer like a dream. It's actually possible. And so I started looking for ideas, and then I stumbled. My first idea was to import purple maize drinks from Peru, where I'm from, and it didn't pan out. People thought it was like Kool-Aid and did not focus on the health benefits at all. And so I stumbled upon this opportunity when I crashed a motorcycle at like 80 miles per hour, and I could not afford to buy a motorcycle. And I didn't use it that often, like most Americans. So I thought, I'll just rent it on the weekends for fun and save me $10,000. But it turns out that renting a motorcycle is not like renting a car, $30 a day. It costs like $200 a day, which is more expensive than the monthly payment of a motorcycle. So it made no sense. And at the time I working in subprime risk management, and so I had skills to manage the insurance risk of motorcycle sharing. And so I thought, hey, if we're the first to market, first to scale, we're gonna have just the network effects of building a marketplace, but also the data scale mode of being able to manage risk better than our competitions because we have more experience. And it's something that I had seen at I worked at this company called GM Financial that General Motors acquired for $3.5 billion. It was before it was named AmeriCredit. And they were the only company that was able to securitize subprime auto loans during the Great Recession. So I knew how to manage risk like the best of the best, top notch, right? And so it took me about 3 years before my data set was large enough that we could manage the risk properly and start making money from the rentals. And it was really difficult. I was not expecting that there will be so many fraudsters trying to steal the motorcycle with fake identities. I was not expecting, like at the very beginning, how expensive insurance costs were. Without a track record, we were losing $100 on every transaction. So in order to make it happen, I took like 8 credit cards at the same time. My life savings, student loans. I was lucky enough to get into a full-time MBA program at UCLA on full scholarship. So I was able to basically not pay myself a salary for 2 years, and like the credit cards were 0% APR, and so we launched in February 2018, and within 6 months we were doing 60,000 in rentals a month, and so that allowed us to raise a little bit of capital. And we were super lucky that one of our customers was an investor, and because I was totally inexperienced, and when I was trying to pitch to venture investors, they didn't even open the email. And so even though we had all that traction, so we raised only 300,000. That was enough to pay off the credit card debt and keep going for a few more months. And then we kept growing, so the investors were pretty happy and gave us another $500,000. And then we got into Techstars, which gives you 120,000, and then we continued to grow. We grew 300% year over year in 2019, and so then in 2020 we were able to raise a $2 million seed round from this firm called Live Oak Ventures in Texas, and we ended up moving to Texas, cut our cost. And then the pandemic happened, and all of our growth went to zero. So that was really painful and unexpected. In 2021, that's when we finally figured out how to have positive gross margins, and then we did better in 2022. And we spent a lot of money on marketing trying to grow, only to realize that, hey, we don't need to spend money to drive demand. We're supply constrained. We rank number 1 on Google for motorcycle rentals, and so growth has slowed down. The last 2 years was only 100% year over year, but going forward, we have pretty high expectations now that we figure out, like, all we need to do is acquire supply. We spent the last 3 months figuring out how to cut supply cost acquisitions, and so we need 150 motorcycles, and we're gonna be a unicorn. At least that's the plan. We'll see how it goes. It never goes the way you plan it, right?
No, that's an incredible story. And typically where I like to kind of take our conversation from here is that, in general, I think most would admit that the whole journey of entrepreneurship or business ownership, whether it's startup or buying and starting to build a business from there, is usually not a linear, always positive line. There's ups, there's downs, there's some really high highs and really low lows. There's a lot of different things that can happen in that journey. So as you look back on maybe not just the last 4 years, but the last several years of preparing and then launching and officially getting this business up and running, if you were to look back and say, what has been the biggest roadblock or challenge that you've had to overcome, knowing that there may have been several, but if you could pinpoint, one main challenge you've had to go overcome, what was that?
Oh gosh. I think I picked an idea that is very, very difficult to execute, and I had no clue. It's not, honestly, it's not the greatest idea. Like, it's not a $1 trillion market, but there's very little competition. And if we execute successfully, there will be very little competition and high margins. But like, I didn't realize how difficult execution is on, man, especially on the insurance piece. Because pricing the risk and using machine learning, that stuff is easy. The hard part is building operational processes so that you are collecting clean data, accounting for all costs in your pricing, not just insurance costs. So like, what about the tow? What about reimbursing the person that, for their Uber to pick up the vibe, whatever. And so like, there's all these details that I was not expecting. So in general, just starting a business, now when I walk into a restaurant, I have so much admiration for the amount of attention to detail that they put on the decorations and stuff, because it's not easy. And yeah, I mean, there's so much, all these laws you have to know, all this, when it comes to investing, it's just it's a full-time job, fundraising and reading those contracts and the terms, and oh my God, it's just, for us, it's been insurance, but in general, it's just, I think I underestimated how complicated is the execution of a seemingly, it's seemingly like, it's not a new idea, right? People, RV sharing, boat sharing, car sharing, had been around for 5 years or more before I started the company. And so there was a template to follow. And nonetheless, it was still so much more difficult. Extracting the motorcycle endorsement from the license, everything has been so challenging. And there used to be like 5 other motorcycle sharing companies, and most of them are now out of business. So it is extremely challenging. We're not the only ones facing this. Yeah.
Oh man. So I'm curious on what has been your path to overcoming or moving past those challenges or roadblocks, knowing that each scenario may have been slightly different, but is there kind of maybe one piece of advice that you would give for anyone that's encountering a whole bunch of challenges, or that things were frankly a lot harder than they seem on the surface, have to do a lot of learning about things that we don't know, that sort of thing? How do you overcome those challenges?
For us, it was super helpful that the partner at Livebook used to work at Turo, the largest car sharing company. And so he connected us to advisors from risk management software, product, etc. And so they were able to, especially on the risk side, they were able to guide us on, hey, here are the best ways to manage risk. Here's what worked for us in marketing. And so they saved us probably a couple of years worth of learning, and in exchange for just a tiny little bit of equity, right, of stock options. And so I highly recommend finding industry advisors, but not just to put them on the deck to pitch to investors, but investors don't care about that anymore, but to actually learn from them. And and you might have to reward them, but not just free advisors, right? Although there's a lot of people that will give you advice for free, and I'm really thankful for those. But yeah,
That's beautiful. It's so important. I know we often use the kind of a couple different phrases when it comes to learning, and first one's being the learning work is often the hardest work. So you have to learn what you don't know, and the other one is typically you have to learn before you earn, right? And there's so much out there to learn. So on that topic of lessons learned, as you look back at, especially at the last 4 years, what would you say is the biggest lesson that you've learned along your journey?
the biggest lesson, I think, when it comes to hiring executives, I think you need to really, really, really vet people. So people that, like, it's really, I've hired a couple of politicians instead of doers, and you gotta be really careful not to hire politicians.
Mm.
At an early stage startup, everyone needs to work, not just tell other people what to do. And even if you tell people what to do, you need to be like really good at, if you're gonna just tell people what to do, you need to be elite at decision making. And decision making and strategy, it's a science. Like you need to know statistics, probability, and there are a lot of executives in their 50s that don't see it that way. And so you gotta be super careful when you interview them. You gotta make sure that they're not just great politicians, because during the interview they'll say yes to everything. Yeah, that's how I do it. Yeah, I'm very data driven, blah blah. But then in reality, they're not data driven. They're gut driven. And so like I think, man, I'm seriously considering doing like Wonder League tests to future executives that are higher, and making them go through like exercises to see if they are actually data driven versus gut driven. Because I've been burned a couple of times. People that get paid a lot but don't really and spend a lot of our budget but don't really deliver results. Yeah.
Oh, anytime it's team related in general, whether it's executives or just anyone on team, it's there's definitely a science to interviewing, having conversations, really understanding kind of who's coming onto the team. Are they the right fit, both skill wise and culture wise? So it's a big lesson. We've talked a lot about kind of history, journey, how you got into where you are today, but I'm curious, as we look towards the future, what excites you? What is something that you're looking forward to? You're like, man, this is where my business is headed. This is what's super exciting. This is what gets me out of bed in the morning. What does that look like for you?
And so part of it is that we're about to expand so much that we're gonna make, when you have a lot of supply in the marketplace, they compete with each other, not just on price but also on service, variety. And so like our service is about to get 10 times better, simply because we're going to grow the supply, and we found a way to grow it that is cost effective, extremely cost effective. Again, thanks to the advice from another CEO from the certain economy. It's always be learning. And so if it works, then we'll be able to potentially expand into other channels as well, like snowmobiles, ATVs. And I think it would be a lot of fun if you subscribe to rideshare and you get access to all these super affordable rentals, winter and summer. And then last but not least is the experiences piece of it. And so Airbnb already laid out the template of how to do experiences. They have $1 million budgets, and they A/B test everything, right? And we are a team of 6 people only. We're not gonna A/B test everything, so it's super helpful when there are templates we can follow. And but we want to offer experiences around power sports, from learning how to ride a motorcycle and classes, because you need a motorcycle endorsement to ride motorcycles, and it's a limiting factor in our growth if people are not getting licenses. But also all the way to organizing experiences and road trips and events all in one place. And I think of it as a way to drive more rentals, but also it could, I'm excited about where people are going to take it, because you see all these hooligans doing crazy things and organizing rides and whatnot. And it's like, why not host these events on rideshare and bringing more people? Or maybe you want to charge people to organize a particular road trip to some unknown roads that no one else knows. That's so be, right? So I'm pretty excited to see where people take it. And our mission is to make powersport affordable, and also to get you off your screen and into the outdoors, right? So that's where we're headed.
Oh man, I'm excited for you. That sounds like so much fun. Uh, I
And
don't
a
know.
lot of risk too, right? People are going to get hurt and stuff, and we're gonna have to manage a risk. But yeah, that's if it was easy, then we would have more competition, right?
I suppose that's true. So I do want to be, mindful of time. I appreciate the time investment so far. I've really only got kind of 2 questions left. So before we jump into kind of my final question of the day, what if there was one piece of advice that you could give to someone that might have been in your shoes, several years ago, looking at potentially moving into entrepreneurship or business, what piece of advice would you give someone?
If you're a first-time entrepreneur, like I don't care if you have worked for 50 years at a corporation or something, you know nothing. Assume you know nothing. Talk to people, because even I meet first-time entrepreneurs that even experienced ones like tend to underestimate how much they don't know.
Mm. Yeah, that is such a good piece of advice. The we'll just leave it at that. That is phenomenal. Cool. So before I ask my final question, I do want to give kind of the opportunity here. How can others find out more about your business, about you? How can they get in contact? They want to go rent some motorcycles. How do they get started tomorrow? Share with us a little bit on how we can connect with you or connect with your business.
Yeah, our website is www.riders-share.com. And if you find me on LinkedIn and tell me that you met me through Tanner, then I'll accept and we can stay in contact.
Beautiful. I love it. Definitely going to have, I can't imagine that anyone watching this would not go at least check that out. So there's my plug for this year. Go check it out, because this sounds like so much fun. But Guillermo, before we officially end kind of our conversation here today, I like to end these interviews on one kind of final question.
Mm-hmm.
What is most inspiring to you today?
Most inspiring to me today? I don't know, man. I'm reading about entropy and how the universe is going to end in a few million years and go into eternal darkness. And I'm not very inspired, man. Inspiring with someone, if you can find a way to reverse entropy, then that would be very inspiring. But as of right now, it's, man, I'm very skeptical of the prospects of life.
Fun.
Sorry, no, you expected.
It was not, but that's okay. I love the variety of thoughts and everything that come through. So no, that's excellent. Guillermo, I appreciate you taking the time. This has been a incredibly fun conversation to learn a little bit more about your journey, the ups, the downs, a little bit more about the business, where things are headed in the future, because this is going to be pretty exciting for the business there. So thank you so much for taking the time, and I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Tanner. Take care.